A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
On a Monday, we like to check in with the Australian Christian Lobby, and Jacob Hill joining us today, the Australian Christian Lobby State Director for Western Australia. Jacob, welcome along.
Delighted to be here, Neil.
Hey, Jacob, let's start with something, I guess you'd call this a national issue. The Harbour Bridge walk, so many were seeing images on news overnight. There's all sorts of developments around that, and there might be some thinking to consider. What were your overall impressions of those pro-Palestinian protesters marching across the Harbour Bridge?
My initial thoughts are, how wonderful is it that we live in a country where we can freely gather and freely express ideas that aren't popular with everybody. I thought, what a privilege to be here. And that's quickly followed by the hypocrisy of the whole of a lot of the bandwagon, I think, is really what sort of, that's the bit that gets to me.
Isn't it interesting, because anti-Semitism used to be a fairly minimal thing in Australia. Of course, it's been there. It's been under the surface. Of course, what happened on October 7, 2023 brought a whole lot of emotions to light and gave rise to an awful lot of propaganda on that particular side. Do you think that there was a statement that was made that might have looked like a great opportunity for free speech and being able to have your say, but what did it do for, the way that maybe Australians even continue to think about anti-Semitism?
I think that it was a giant slap in the face for Australians who actually care about unity, who actually are decent people. I think a lot of people are blindly following the popular tide, and the disguised anti-Semitism, using human rights as a banner to basically openly celebrate anti-Semitic ideas. I think I'm embarrassed, really, as a country. We're putting a lot of support behind Hamas and a statement that says from the river to the sea and the eradication of a nation. And I'm embarrassed, quite frankly.
Okay, you know what? It was billed as a march for humanity. And those are nice sounding words, aren't they? But I can't help. You might have seen images too, but one of the more prominent images that was on display, and it was across the media this morning, and picture of the Iranian Ayatollah Khamenei, the master of state-sponsored terrorism and anti-Israel hatred, really right there over all of the primary people at the front of the march. I mean, that's got its own message, hasn't it?
Not even subtle. And one of the things that I think sort of add to really show where people are at is a lot of these high-profile people that are supporting this idea, and they're very vocal about it, have not spoken out decrying the attack on Israel, the October attack on Israel. No expression about releasing the hostages. No, if you're genuinely concerned about human rights, it's not about one particular nation. You're talking about humanity, and these guys are really clearly showing they're one-sided.
Interesting the timing, because it was so rushed, and the New South Wales Supreme Court ruled in favour of the organisers to be able to have a quickly assembled march, and it seemed to be the organisers were rolling along with the sentiment that went along with those pictures of a child starved supposedly in Israel, although, the truth around those images has emerged. No doubt there are some issues around some starvation that might have some weight, but certainly denied by the Israelis, as they are in the way that they provide aid into Gaza. But the rushed nature of this, to take advantage of the propaganda that had swept the world, did you think that was something to do with the timing?
Yeah, I think it's like it's propaganda. I think you've nailed it's flat out propaganda that has been rushed through over police the issues, things like that, where you can really see that it's ideologically driven. And even that particular image that you're speaking about, where it was the mother holding the emaciated child, and then it comes out that it was fake, and you don't have any recall on it. You're not having, there's no widespread take back of it. So you can really see that they're pushing ideology and nothing to do with it. It's all about don't let the facts get in the way.
That's right. The idea, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And so a rushed protest march across Australia's iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge for the purposes of propaganda. At the same time, I think the Israeli response was to release images too that they had of those that had been released from Hamas around a Jewish hostage who was held, and he himself as you know, we call that in an emaciated state, and Benjamin Netanyahu hearkening back to images of Jews in Nazi concentration camps. That's probably, I guess, closer to the reality here, but because those hostages being treated very poorly, obviously.
Yeah, and the thing is I'm sure there are bad things happening to people on both sides. War is hell. War is a bad thing. War is bad because people get hurt. Innocent people are seriously affected. And this is what we're seeing. This is a war that Hamas started, and war is hell. So you're going to have, even in the most humane set of circumstances, you're going to have collateral damage, civilian collateral damage realistically. And what we do understand about the Hamas model of attacking from schools and hospitals, and where they actually, using these guys as shields, and then using the press as their international weapon, basically, all the Israel's shooting back, but they're able to paint it as they're attacking civilians. And that's where I think we, as an objective bystander, we need to be able to have intelligent opinions rather than, swallowing the hook, line and sinker, the propaganda being pumped down our throats. And what bothers me is, okay, let's just for one moment decide that we agree with the propaganda that's being, spouted. Then why are these same people not up in arms about genocides happening in other parts of the world, famine that is man-driven happening in other parts of the world? They really, really clearly don't have a humanitarian motivation is not that. It's anti-Semitism, and it's hiding behind humanitarianism, which if it was genuine, you would see it widespread and across the board, and it's simply not. So I think we need to be calling it what it is.
Calling a spade, hey, the New South Wales Supreme Court, ruling in favour of the organisers and throwing the police into a circumstance where they were completely unprepared for the size of what that protest march was. And on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, you would have seen perhaps comment from police today concerned about the fact that they were thrown into the deep end there and they did not have time to prepare. Is that saying something about what our, the magistrates or whoever it was that allowed that to go through the Supreme Court? Is that saying something about our legal system, maybe being pressured by supporters of Hamas?
You would have to, look, you would have to think that. It's, since when don't you listen to your police directives, safety directives? Like, when does the government actually, or when does the court override a safety directive where, so there are things they could do, push it back a week, give the police more time, move it to a safer environment, a safer place, things like that, where they just simply didn't. And we're seeing, federally, positions being taken by our federal government, statements being made. We saw Penny Wong not engaging at all with Israel at international meetings, and while meeting with Hamas, while meeting with Iran and things like that. And it's pretty clear that it's coming from high up. The whole, the momentum, and the Supreme Court is just following the political tide. I think.
Political tide, propaganda, momentum. Talk now about the two-state solution. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that commentary begins to unfold through this week too. Hey, let's get some focus on WA. You're the State Director for WA for the ACL. What are your thoughts here around what's happening so far as state government prioritisation of some projects, whereas it would appear that the people are saying, hey, we want your attention on things like homelessness and health and hospitals and mental health. What are your thoughts about what's going on in WA?
It actually breaks my heart, Neil. My background is as a pastor, but it's specifically in community services, in homelessness, mental health, addiction recovery. So very frontline type on the street work, where we see homelessness, and I understand it's an issue nationally, but we're seeing it off the charts here. And in my work in homelessness, we'd be like, there are little pockets of bush right in suburbia that people are living in. There was one particular a van that had 8 kids, mum, dad, and 8 kids living in a van in a local park. It's nuts. And where the government are making all these big promises, our state government are pledging to build this and do this and this many homes, and it actually, I get angry because we built a house, a couple of years ago, and we're watching how slow it is for a house to be built. Now the issue is with that, and we built a new church building more recently, and the issue is they simply do not have the manpower to build infrastructure. They are not available. In Western Australia, we've already got because of our mining sector, there's already a huge tax on our qualified tradesmen up north, like going up north. So we're already, they're a premium, and we've got the state government prioritising pet projects, legacy projects over building houses and hospitals. When our hospital ramping, Neil, it's not uncommon for people to be waiting 24 hours in an emergency department. It's not uncommon to have ambulances banking up for hours outside of the emergency departments of our rundown hospitals. So I'm a bit like, these guys, they talk a good game, and you can throw all the dollars at it, but there simply is not the manpower to build the necessary infrastructure, the necessary housing to relieve the pressure. So in my mind, these guys are not caring about the poor. They are not caring about the marginalised, the elderly, those suffering with mental health, because they're not allowing they're not allowing the manpower to be released to build that stuff.
Okay. From what I can glean, somewhere around 10,000 people are homeless around WA, and probably primarily focused there on the Perth area. The unmet housing need, somewhere in the vicinity of 54,200 dwellings. I'm just going on some figures that I gleaned from some Salvation Army detail. You identify that somehow or other there's a problem that doesn't seem to be easily solved, but the government is prioritising a whole bunch of other things that might be not as necessary. What are the things you think are being reprioritised or prioritised above getting to the real issues?
So, we all agree that public transport infrastructure is useful, and if you're able to put public transport into further reaching suburbs, you open those areas up so you can actually put dwelling out there and things like that. So that's, on the surface, building a railway line is a great idea. So there was a railway line slated to be built some of the outlying suburbs, and it was budgeted for $3 billion, which, it's nice to throw that number around, but that's a lot of money. Now that project's blown out from $3 billion. So last I heard it was at $14 billion. So that's $11 billion over budget, and so it's called MetroNet, and that's unbelievable. That level of irresponsible. There's not even a box to stick that in. Imagine getting a quote to build your house for like $500,000, and then that blowing up like, 3 times, like, so instead of $500,000 house, now you got to pay $2 million. Like you would just say no. And then now more recently, they want him to put a racing track right across the road across the river from the city, right in the heart of Perth. And nobody's asked for it. They budgeted $250 million, which doesn't mean anything, because what these guys have shown, they only say a number that'll like get through. They're not going to stick to it, but they're sucking boys off building sites. So a racetrack and a $15 billion train line, they're the top of the list for me.
Okay. Hey, you've identified a solution and, not enough tradespeople. And yes, you want some expert wisdom to be applied to how you resolve that. In the meantime, homelessness is on the rise. Causes of homelessness, I guess, poverty. You've got, low incomes, lack of affordable housing, all of these sorts of things. And, when we talk about, Australian Christian Lobby, and people can hear your heart and your background, is there some effort you're making in the corridors of power there in WA, talking to people about priorities and support for people who are homeless and getting some priorities in spending right? Are you able to, articulate some of those things with those politicians who are in power?
Yeah, I have been having that conversation since I started in this role nearly a year ago. So that's something like I'll have that conversation with an MP probably every week at least. What we're really seeing is that traditionally homelessness has been, addiction and mental health have been those people are the ones that we've seen, people that are, entrenched in those cycles. That's what we've, a typical homeless cohort, and rough sleepers would be the industry jargon. Now, what we're seeing is they are not the drivers. You've got what we call the working homeless, where we've got families that have jobs. They have kids in school. They're working. They're living in their car. They're living at parks, taking their kid to shower in the park showers. And so we've moved past the traditional drivers of addiction and mental health. Now we're in housing shortage is causing this problem. It's an infrastructure problem.
Well,
so we're basically prioritising where they put their manpower and then also forward thinking as well, like making it easier for people to go through TAFE to get their certificates, where regional guys can't get into TAFE. The trade schools are, backed up. And, I was talking with someone, a mum the other day, and her son, there's a giant waiting list to get into a trade school, which is just inexcusable when we've got a shortage of tradesmen.
Yeah. Hey, I know that there'll be people in WA listening to our conversation excited by the fact that you are someone with a heart for where the vulnerabilities are right now. And everyone who lives in WA, they'll know the images that you paint about people living in tents in all of those open parkland areas around Perth, and no doubt it's distributed right around certainly southwest WA. Jacob Hill, the ACL State Director in WA, to connect with Jacob and to find out what sort of campaigns are operating with the Australian Christian Lobby, acl.org.au. That's the website for Australian Christian Lobby, acl.org.au. Jacob, thanks so much for taking some time to share this update with us today on 2020.
Love it. Thanks so much, Neil. Bless you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.